My name is Shannon Low. Thanks very much, Pranav, for the introduction. I head up the Google Play Apps and Games business development team for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I'm very happy to be here today to speak to you about how to reach more users for your apps. For this session, I'll also be joined by my colleague, Bruce Kerr-Peterson, the EMEA Regional Lead for App Developer Sales. So a quick rundown of what we're going to talk about today. First of all, I'm going to talk about some of the things that we've been doing to bring more users to the Play Store and to you. I'll touch a bit on search and discovery and some of tips to improve discoverability of your app on Play. Then I want to talk also a bit about best practice to reach users outside of Play. And finally, Bruce will also talk about how to leverage Google's paid promotion solutions to acquire even more users for your app. So let's start with the marketing campaigns that we've been running to drive awareness and bring more users to Google Play. Nice picture out here. We've been investing heavily in promoting Google Play around the world and running marketing campaigns so that users know about all the high-quality apps and content available on the store. This is an example of an outdoor campaign in Waterloo Station here in London, where we've been featuring great apps and games. We've also done similar campaigns in Piccadilly Circus, in New York, and Times Square. We've also been running TV commercials in several countries, such as UK and Japan. On the left, you see what we call a Play Your Heart Out television commercial. And on the right is a television commercial specific to games. And again, these heavily feature Google Play content, including apps and games. Here are some examples of digital campaigns that we've been running in the UK and the US. As you can see, Google Play brand and the content is featured prominently in the mastheads of websites, bring attention to Play, drive users to Play in front of you guys. Obviously, we are doing campaigns on mobile as well. We're running digital campaigns in Korea, a couple of other markets. Here's some examples of a rich media mobile campaign that we have. And this is what you can see on a tablet and a phone if you're exposed to these campaigns. And being Google, we're constantly pushing the boundaries, figuring out what new things we can do to promote new apps and games. Here's an example of an experiment we did in the US with editorial collections and promotional videos in the Google Play Store. What you see here is a page on the Google Play Store with a video front and center. You click on that video, you see like a short commercial of fun apps that you might want to use in the summer. And below that is an editorial collection of those same apps that were featured in the video. So all that is about bringing users into the store, driving awareness, and driving users to you. Once the users are on the Play Store, how do they discover your app? So that's why we need to talk about search on Google Play. Let's start with search. For the average app, search makes a large share of installs. I think we all know that. As an app developer, when a user searches for something that's like your app, what do you want to do? You want them to find your app first, right? And optimizing that process means understanding the types of searches that users are doing and making sure that the data for your app supports these searches so that we can surface these to users. So what are the types of searches that users do on Play? There are two types of searches. The first is searching by title. This is when a user knows exactly what they're looking for. They know the title of your app. So all they do is just type in the title of your app into the search bar, and they do that search based on that. What's important here? The really important thing to remember here is that a high-quality title is really, really key. Titles are not just about branding. It's important to be as clear as possible in the title to communicate what the app is about and what it does for the user, right? Is your app about internet radio? Is your app about travel planning? Is it about podcasting? Make this clear in the title so that you capture the attention of interested users. That also makes your app stand out in a sea of competitors, and it also helps us surface you in relevant search queries. Second type of search that users do is when they don't know exactly what they're looking for, and they're searching by keywords, and these keywords might correspond to features in your app or characteristics of your app or game. So for example, my friend might tell me, hey, there's this new cool game out that's got something to do with puzzles and goblins, right? So I might search for puzzle games with goblins and see what comes out of there. What supports these kinds of searches? This is where your store listing is really important. Your app's description should clearly tell us all about, tell us and tell users what your app does and why it matches to users, right? make sure that you get all that information up front. And once that's done, then you can brag about how successful your app is, all the awards you've won and so forth, but make sure front and center right at the top tells what your app does, why it matters. So getting users to your store listing to land on there is just like, from search, is just one part of the equation. The other part is getting them to download, hit that install button, right? Convert them in that way, reaching the users that way. So keep in mind that there are many users out there who judge apps by the quality of the screenshots and videos, because if you haven't downloaded an app yet, there's no other way you can tell what that app is like when you actually have it on your phone. So make sure you have high quality screenshots and videos that the user can scan through, and the more you can communicate the app experience, what the app experience is like, the more likely it is that users will download your app. Of course, you don't have to do all the work when it comes to search. Google Play is constantly collecting statistics about installs, uninstalls, install retention, and engagement. And apps that are successful on all of these metrics are more likely to be highly ranked in search results. So what does that mean? It means that the most important thing you can do is to create the best experience for your users, no matter what your app does. Because if you've got a great app that users love, they're going to install it. They're less likely to uninstall it. If they do uninstall it at some point, they will keep it for a long time, finish playing through the game or whatever before they uninstall it, and they'll be very engaged. They'll be, spend a lot of time in your app, and these are the signals that we pick up on to recognize what's a high-quality app. So sometimes users might just want to browse through the Play Store and check out new apps, right? That's discovery by browsing, and there are generally two categories that browsing falls into. The first is browsing on the app's homepage, and the second is browsing through top charts. So when a user opens the Play Store, we all know what the app's homepage is. You tap apps, and then you get to this place called the app's homepage. And here is where users can discover apps from different clusters and categories. For example, they might find new and updated apps, health and fitness apps, communication apps. And this page is personalized for each user, so remember that. So the app's homepage is a browsing experience that lets Google Play offer great apps that the user may be interested in. And finally, there's top charts. So these lists, like top selling, top apps, top grossing, top new, trending, are common ways that we provide for both new and returning users to quickly discover the most popular apps. So that's search and discovery on Play. Some quick little tips on how to improve discoverability. Now I'd like to talk about a few more concrete things you can do to acquire users for your app outside of Play. So you built your app, you published it. You obviously want to publicize it on your website, marketing material, ad campaigns, social media channels, everything. Get it out there, right? Remember to use Google Play official badging when you do that. That's really important. Why? Because users are 47% more likely to trust and download your app when they see that badge. If you happen to have a web service that accompanies your mobile app, or users use your service across web and mobile, it makes a lot of sense to also consider using Google Sign-In on your website, so that users who sign in with their Google account have the option to send your app directly to their device over the air. It just works like that, like magic. You sign in one time on your website, the user gets this button, say install on device. You tap that, bang, it appears on your device seconds later, right? And what's even better is that once the user is signing in on your device, he's also automatically signed in on the app. So there's no friction around getting that user into your app that way. So developers have seen a 40% install acceptance rate using this. So this is really worth doing, really worth trying out. Now, we all know that social media is really important for acquiring users, and YouTube is a great marketing channel for apps, especially games, right? We have a huge audience of potentially interested users, and this survey by Blitz found that about 95% of gamers discover new games by watching gameplay videos or trailers. That's significantly more than the percentage of users who discover games by reading reviews, going to game makers' websites, and so forth. So think about creating a YouTube channel, right, to share your game trailers, to share gameplay videos, game tips, even user-generated content around your games if you're a game developer, to engage and acquire potential new users. If you're an app developer, think about how this might apply to you as well. Maybe you want to if it's, for example, a utility or productivity app, you want to create a channel that shares tips around how you can use your app to drive productivity in your life. Finally, one more thing you can do to acquire more users which is if you have a portfolio of apps and your app shows ads, you can show free house ads using AdMob and promote your other apps for free. This works because users who've downloaded one or more of your apps already knows your product and should be more receptive to other apps that you offer. So this is offered for free. Try it out. It's no harm trying it, definitely. So that's some of the things that you can do to acquire users for free. Now I'd like to welcome Bruce to talk about how you can leverage Google's paid promotion solutions to acquire even more users for your apps. Bruce?
Hello. Thank you very much, Shannon. It's always difficult to follow something about paid promotions when the last sentence is about doing it for free. So my name is Bruce Kerr-Peterson. I help developers find the right users for their applications through paid promotions. You as developers are just developing these incredible applications. Some of the things that Ellie talked about earlier are just brilliant. The next step, though, is to actually find users to download and engage with your application. Today, I'm going to show you how you can drive discovery and engagement through our paid solutions. There are millions of apps out there. Take some time to think about how you could possibly leverage some of these to actually make your app stand out from the crowd. When I speak to app developers, the first thing that jumps to mind when it comes to app promotion is in-app promotion. However, when you think about your user can be found in multiple different places. And it's not just about in-app promotion. Every day, our advertising solutions are becoming smarter and more effective. We currently have the ability to advertise on 3 great platforms. There are 2 billion video hours watched on YouTube mobile per month. There are 100 billion searches on Google.com per month. And through AdMob, we can reach 900 million unique devices per month. So the question really comes then, how do you choose the right campaign? And that largely comes down to the users that you're trying to engage with. Do you just want those users to download your app and actually open it for one time? Or do you actually want them to open that app and take a very specific action and continue to open that app and take very specific actions? I was speaking to a developer the other day. She'd done a lot of market research about her financial management app. And she found an app that could really meet a consumer need. She had developed the app and it was brilliant. The difficulty she was finding was actually driving discovery and getting that app installed and for users to actually use that app. It's a common conversation that I have, and it's one of the biggest problems. You're out there developing these revolutionary apps that consumers and users might not have even thought about. The possibilities within these apps are untold. And that's why using things like YouTube and TrueView campaigns is such a great way to explain what your app does to the users that could potentially be using it. These campaigns help reach people on YouTube who are actively watching or have watched videos that are related to applications like yours, or have an interest in similar apps. AdWords will only show these ads to people on relevant devices and not on desktop or computer. One of the things that YouTube is very well known for is boosting awareness. This is a great example of when a situation has happened and awareness has been boosted. Game of War: Fire Age was developed by Machine Zone. It was a top-grossing app on iOS and Android. The goal for them when they started their YouTube campaigns was to drive a high volume of engaged users to install their app and play their game. Once they launched those campaigns and the results were in, they figured out that the value of the users coming from YouTube and those campaigns were 15% more valuable than any other video platform. YouTube is an incredibly powerful platform to use. It can be used for both branding and performance. Performance and Google search. The two words are very synonymous. An increasingly more powerful way to drive user engagement is through the mobile search network. Mobile app install campaigns on the search network help people who are already looking for apps or businesses like yours find your app. The key to creating any successful search campaign, as many of you know, comes down to the keywords. And Shannon touched on it a bit earlier. These keywords, and through the new user interface, can be generated through pulling in keywords from Google Play and Google Search to give you a few suggestions that you could use. In addition to that, you could think about what your app actually does and the functionality that your app has within it, and use those words in combination with the word app. For example, hotel app, car app, shopping app. In addition to that, you could look at brand words, brand keywords, and long-tail keywords. These are particularly useful if you're trying to drive towards a very aggressive target CPI. In addition to mobile app install campaigns on the search network, you also have the ability to use mobile app install campaigns with extensions. So it's not always the case that you only want to drive app downloads. It could be possible that your web presence is incredibly strong, and you have an equal preference to whether you get a website click or an app download. So in this particular case, using app extensions, like the one described by Rhonda Hansen, could be an excellent way to give the user the opportunity to do one or the other. So as I mentioned before, one of the most used advertising platforms is through in-app or AdMob. And these types of campaigns drive a huge volume of impressions. Now that volume of impressions is a great way to get your awareness out there and to make users aware of the type of app that you have. They're very easy to set up. You literally select your app and what you want to promote it on, and we'll set up the rest of the campaign for you. In the long run, you can use Conversion Optimizer as well to maintain that campaign and that sustainability towards a target CPI. The shift of the focus in the past has largely been on these large burst campaigns that would get you up the rankings. However, what we're seeing more and more now is marketers and developers working on longer-term strategies to make sure that they can profitably drive these app downloads and then follow that up with engagement strategies. As we've just covered, in-app advertising is one of the fundamental parts to an advertising campaign. App promotions ads are templated to create text, banner, and interstitial ad formats, driving users to either the iTunes Store or the Google Play Store. These ads run on mobile search, on GDN, and in-apps, and are the most effective format for driving app downloads. Once again, reaching the right user is not just about in-app promotion. Developers and marketers are looking at more holistic ways to reach these consumers, and that's done through Google Search, the display network, and YouTube. And these can all be done and managed through the AdWords interface. Remember, these ads are smart. They're purpose-built to help drive app downloads. The first step, as I've just covered, is very much about discovery, driving app downloads. The second step is about engagement. And this is really where you get to push the lifetime value of your users and to increase the profitability of your app over time. Users need to be kept updated to what's going on in your app. Otherwise, it acts as a silo. And they never really know when you have new updates or potentially different games or levels that they can play. So through paid promotion, I'll show you a couple of ways in which you can re-engage with those users over time to sustainably increase the profitability of your app. So in order to do that, there are really two ways. The first is through app engagement campaigns on the display network. These are app engagement ads that are targeted towards users who already have your app installed. It encourages the user to open up your app and to engage again with the content. On the search network, it is a similar principle. App engagement campaigns on the search network target users who already have your app installed. They drive people back into the app, and the aim is to make the action relate to the search query that they've just searched on to get them there. So the question is, how do you relate that search query back to the content within your app? And that really comes down to deep linking. For ads on the web, just to give you an analogy, you would have your landing page, example.com. But driving users to example.com might not be the best user experience, so we make it more specific. If a user searches for shoes, you drive them to example.com/shoes. That principle is the same for apps. It's just called deep linking. So to give you a few examples of how it could potentially work, and some of these might relate to the apps that you actually have. When a user is logged in and they actually have their app on their device, they could search for flights to Beijing on the Google Search Network. And you could direct them into your app to flights to China. Winter coats would be another example, where the search would be winter coats, and you could direct them into your app on the coats page. And lastly, if a user was searching for Boston movie times, you could direct them into your app to the Boston show times page. To give you some gaming examples as well, because they're kind of interesting. If, for example, a user was searching on the search network for a gaming app, you could potentially show them an ad that's related to that query if they once again had your app installed on their phone already or their tablet, driving them back into your app to a page that said play again. And once again, instead of them looking for other apps to download, other gaming apps to download, you drive them back into your app to re-engage. Or if you know that your users get stuck on a particular level within your game, for example, level 10, and they would go onto Google Search to figure out how to beat level 10. You could have an ad that triggered for the search query, beating Game of War Fire Age level 10. You could direct them back into your app to a page where they could potentially purchase something that would help them beat that level or take them to a special level where they could progress from there. So it's a very, very powerful way of engaging and tailoring your apps to your specific audience. So that's very much on the search network. On the display side of things, we fall back on something that's slightly more traditional, and that's remarketing. So you can remarket in apps. These remarketing lists are created once your app has been downloaded and you add people to specific lists. You can then retarget them while they're engaging in other apps with content that is relevant to them and can help them come back into your app and take a specific action. I'll give you 3 examples of lists that are commonly used. So people who didn't use your app recently. So your app's been downloaded, you've taken the effort, you've paid the money to actually have your app downloaded, but your app hasn't been engaged with within the past 30 days. You could add that cohort of users to a particular list that you could retarget with messaging that encourages them to come back into your app and either look at a new feature or take a particular action, but in that way you can drive that re-engagement. If people are using a specific version of your app and haven't taken advantage of some of the cool features you might have developed, you can once again tailor a message to them where you explain some of these new features and what they could potentially use by going back into your app and upgrading. Or people who took a specific action in your app. If you know that a percentage of your app users are the ones that monetize very well, you could add them to a cohort or a group, and you could retarget them with discounts or particular offers or new features that they could potentially purchase. And in that way, you're really, really increasing the lifetime value of that app, and that drives the profitability of the app in the long run. Now, when you think of these two combined, it becomes very, very powerful. So you have the deep linking on one hand, and you have the remarketing and re-engagement on the other. But imagine if you combine that into one ad format, where you can tailor and group people into specific lists. You then show them ads that are very particular to that group and deep link them back into your app, where they can take actions that are very specific to the particular user group that they are and related to the app where they'll find them. It's an incredibly powerful way of retargeting people and increasing that engagement over time. And it's one in which it's really going to drive the lifetime value and, as I said, the profitability of that app. So, in closing, paid promotion is all about reaching the right user at the right time. It's always been about that. The first step is driving app discovery. Shannon talked about ways in which that can be done for free. And these are some of the ways in which you can do it through paid promotion. The second step is consistently engaging with that user over time. Thank you very much for all your time and for consistently pushing the boundaries of what is possible so that we can all build better products for our consumers. I'm going to hand over to Matteo, who once again is going to talk to you about free ways to engage with your users. Thank you very much.